Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity and Love. I'm your host, Michael Andre Ford in Texas. We've got incredible guests from the world over, wild backgrounds, incredible foundations. They've been able to go through something in life, and oftentimes they've turned around and decided to serve others or help others through a business, through their books, coaching, their professors. We've even had a Delta Force operated, the youngest ever admitted, but we have healers, again, all sorts of teachers. Today, coming to us from the Bahamas, originally from England, Julie Hoyle. Oh my goodness, coach, spiritual teacher, many other details and incredibleness to her. I'd just like to welcome her to the show. Julie, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. It's a thrill to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Well, we just had a chance to meet a few days ago, and I have been very appreciative of that opportunity. And I think you've had an incredible, very special experience here on, we'll call it planet Earth. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Give us some perspective. I think you're extremely talented. You have a series of books out on Amazon. You've been, again, helping people for a while. I would just put it this way, and I don't think I've ever put it this way. You know what you're doing. You're a lot of fun. And that's it. Leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks so much. So look, just I like to create context, so that there's an understanding. But I was born in the UK into a working class family. And my mom was an atheist on a bad day and an agnostic on a good day. And my dad was I would say, a kind of a lapsed Catholic. So that's kind of the upbringing, to give you an idea. But from the very earliest age, I used to have out of body experiences, visitations from angels. I was really tuned in, with respect to psychic phenomenon. And I initially thought that was true for everybody, but later realized it wasn't. And because I didn't want to be the weird one, I decided the best thing to do would be to pray to God and ask God to close everything down, which I did when I was, I think, around 14. So, then I kind of went on with my life, had what I call a normal life, went to train to be a teacher because I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't want to be a teacher in a conventional sense. And I didn't even really understand what that meant until later, because you know how these things go. So, but what happened was I trained to be a teacher. My husband and I got jobs in the Bahamas. We came to the Bahamas. And we were living the life. We had a boat. We had a lovely place on the beach. We were meeting fabulous people, having a lot of fun. But there was still something inside me that wasn't being fed. And I kept feeling like I was looking for someone or something who could reflect back to me the truth that I knew, which is that, I was more than my mind, my body, and my emotions and all of that, the story. And so I'd go to these parties and events and I'd be looking for somebody, and I knew that when I met him or her, I would recognize that this thing that I was looking for, and I couldn't even really put it into words, but I knew that I would know when I saw it. And I'd just come away empty-handed and disappointed. But anyway, what happened was I think it was in 1988, something like that, I started to get a really severe back problem. I had 2 bulging discs and I essentially ended up on bed rest. And I was in agony. If anybody's had any sort of back or bulging disc problem, it's really agonizing. And so I was on bed rest for, I don't know, 7 or 8 weeks. I went to see several specialists. There wasn't a whole lot they could do. So I decided in the middle of the pain one day that what I would do is I'd start to pray. I'd stopped praying and doing any sort of practices, way back when. And I just said, look, if there is a God, please help me. And if you help me, I'll start going to church. Because I thought, that's what I was supposed to do. So anyway, what happened then was that there was a series of these kind of magical events where, for example, somebody turned up on my doorstep and said she did Reiki and she would offer Reiki sessions to me. She'd heard that I had problems with my back. So she came and gave me Reiki sessions, and I started having dreams of my grandmother who was deceased. And she came, and telling me, giving me, guidance and telling me to pray and so on. And then I started having angelic visitations again. I started to see and perceive, this sort of psychic phenomenon was blowing up again. And literally, little by little over time, my back started to get better. And what happened was, one of the women who was coming to help me to do sort of massaging and soft, gentle massage and energy work to help me with my back and mobility, just said to me in an offhand way one day, you might want to try meditation. There's a meditation group that meets and just down the road, and we meet every Wednesday, and it might help. Why don't you come when you're feeling better? So I said, yeah, sure, because I'd always wanted to learn to meditate. So I went to the meditation group, and the people were really nice. And the person who was hosting it gave us a mantra. And the mantra was Om Namah Shivaya. And I learned that Om is the primordial sound, Namah means I bow to, and Shiva is supreme consciousness. And, you're essentially saying, I bow to the Lord within my own being, is what you're saying. So I learned to, chant and to, repeat the mantra and to sit and to try and meditate, which was it was a 20-minute period. But I just could not meditate for the life of me. I was horrified, because the minute I closed my eyes and tried to meditate, I just saw how active my mind was. And within 3 or 4 minutes or something like that, I'd just give up and look around the room and study everybody's face. And I'd think, how can they sit so quietly? And I can't do this. I'd feel like I wanted to jump up and run out the room. It was really intense, this feeling of not wanting to hold still. So I persevered for 2 or 3 weeks, because I liked the people who were in the group. They were all professional. They weren't woo-woo, which was important to me. And I know it sounds shallow, but it was important to me. But so I went 2 or 3 times or something like that. And after the 3rd time, I was driving home and I was thinking, well, I tried meditation. It didn't work for me, but at least I gave it a go. And that night I went home, went to bed, and then I woke up in a lucid dream. And if with a lucid dream, what happens is you wake up in a dream and you recognize this is a dream and I'm dreaming. And I was very familiar with that because I'd been doing that my whole life. So I woke up in this dream, and in the dream, I was in a place that I knew was India, even though I'd never been to India at that point. And I was walking up a hill, and I had a rolled yoga mat under my arm. And I was walking alongside a woman that I just met at this meditation meeting. Her name was Cheryl. And we were walking up the hill towards a low cinder block building. And we went inside. We went into the back of the hall. And at the front of the hall, sitting on a low wooden tucket, was this Buddha-like figure. He was this Indian man with massive, great big belly, wearing a white loincloth. And he was still, and his eyes were closed. He was in deep meditation. And the minute my eyes lay on him and I saw him, I knew, absolutely knew without a shadow of a doubt, he was the one I'd been searching for my entire life. And it was like everything within me just collapsed and fell to the ground. And I knew that he was completely merged with God. He was God realized or self-realized, although I wouldn't have been able to put it into those words at that time because I had no context, frame of reference for it. I didn't know how to use that language. But anyway, so this lady, Cheryl, said to me, unroll your mat, lay down, and repeat the mantra. So I did as she said. My heart was thumping because I knew something incredible was going to happen. But I lay down, repeated the mantra, and after the first or second time, I felt this light tap on the top of my head. And I knew that the great being at the front of the room was the one doing it, although he hadn't moved a muscle. And I could feel every single cell of my being was being filled with this incredible energy. It was so powerful, so strong. And I could feel the energy swirling and moving and going down my body and into the blood, the tissue, the bones, into every cell, and just pulsating and pulsating. And the more I repeated the mantra, the more this energy intensified. And then my body started to levitate off the ground 2 or 3 feet in the air. And I was just like floating in the air. And I was trying to hold on to the mantra for as long as I could, because I knew it was really important to do that. And then after a few minutes more, I could almost smell burning. And what happened was then I fell down very, powerfully, and fell through time and space. And then I landed back into my physical body through the heart chakra. And then I sat up and just went, "Ugh," really loudly, because I hadn't been breathing the whole time. And my husband woke up and he said, "What happened? What happened?" And I said, "I don't know, but my life will never be the same again." And that proved to be true. My life was completely transformed, and is still, under the kind of the influence of that initiation to this day. And later on, I found out that I'd been given Shaktipat Diksha, which is a hallmark of Bhagavan Nityananda and the Siddha tradition. And these great beings can give Shaktipat in lucid dreams. They do. And they also give Shaktipat Diksha, obviously, person to person, and, in the waking state. And I'd never heard of any of that. I didn't, I'd never read, or nobody had ever told me that. And here I was, this Catholic girl, working class Catholic girl in the Bahamas, being given Shaktipat Diksha in a lucid dream from a great being who I also later learned had taken Mahasamadhi. He left his body in, I think, the late 1960s or something like that. But to this day, people still report across the world being given Shaktipat Diksha by Bhagavan Nityananda in lucid dreams or in visions or in meditations. He's still doing this work.
Okay, what happened next?
So what happened then was, honestly, it was like Pandora's box opened up in a good way. The psychic phenomenon just blew. It's so incredible. I started having more and more lucid dreams with great beings from different paths, faiths, and traditions, many from the yogic tradition. But also I would have these incredible, powerful lucid dreams with Jesus and with Mother Mary, and with Sufi masters, and with Native American shamans, and with teachers from the Sufi tradition, like the Golden Sufis, Mrs. Irina Tweedy. She came in dreams, and Llewellyn Vaughan Lee, if you know anything about the Sufi tradition. And they came and would give teachings, and these Siddha masters would give initiation. I'll just share one example. In another lucid dream, I was walking along a dusty path in India. I knew it was India. And I saw this great being walking towards me, and I recognized his state immediately, because the energy that was coming out of him was so incredible. And I put my hands together and pranamed, and just felt such incredible love. And he said to me, I said, "Hello, it's so wonderful to see you." And he said, "I can give initiation. Would you like?" And I said, "Yes, please, yes." So he took his thumb and he pressed his thumb up against my, here, my third eye. And again, my entire being was filled with the most profound energy. And I was standing there, like, sort of trying to hold everything together. And then he pulled back. And I said, I didn't know his name. So I said to him, "What is your name? Thank you so much. What is your name?" And he said, "Swami Ram Tirth." And I'd never heard of Swami Ram Tirth. So after a few seconds of being in his energy and, feeling this transmission, I was then pulled back to my body and pulled back to waking. And later I did some research, went online, looked for Swami Ram Tirth. And these images started to come up, and it was him. It was the same being that I saw in my dream. And it turned out he was a very well-known and respected mathematician in India. And he was an avadut. He was a great being. He was self-realized, and he used to give initiation in that way, in the same way. And this happened many, many times with great beings, that I'd have these dream meetings. They'd give me initiation or teachings, and then I'd have to go and do research to find out, who is this? I'd always say, what is your name? And they'd tell me. And then I go and I do the research to find out who they were. And it was, the only way I can put it is that through Bhagavan Nityananda's initiation, it was like he gave me privy to all the people, all the great beings he hangs out with. It's like I joined his family. Or I don't quite know how else to put it, but it's been the most incredible process, journey, whatever you want to call it, because it was just so far outside of anything I'd ever heard about or read about, or any of that. And I mean, growing up, as a Catholic, I was raised as a Catholic, and that wasn't even part of any discussion that anybody was having.
We're going to go to what's next, but can you pull back for folks who don't know India, who haven't been? Can you kind of go high, low, left, and right about India? You've made trips there, you've spent time there. It may not be something you're doing quite the same if you go back, but can you just encompass India a little bit and what you've found it to be all about?
Yeah, so let me just say, I had no desire to go to India growing up. It wasn't like on my wish list, I have to say. But certainly after receiving this initiation from Bhagavan Nityananda, I felt a pull. I really felt this pull to go there. And what happened was my husband and I were invited to go on staff at an ashram in India. And I'd kind of been given I guess an inkling that this was coming, because I had this message inside of me that was, when are you coming to see me? And I knew that it was an invitation from Nityananda, and to go see him, although I see him all the time here, he's with me always, to go to this place where he lived and kind of did most of his work. And so my husband and I were given this opportunity, and it felt right. And so we just quit our jobs. We're going, and off we went. But what happened was, the minute we stepped outside at the air, we flew into Mumbai, and the minute we stepped outside of the airport, again, it was as if everything collapsed down. And there was this sigh of recognition and this feeling, oh, I'm home. I know this place. I could feel the heartbeat of Mother India, and it was so personal and so known to me deep in, on a soul level. I recognized it immediately. And of course, it's challenging, because you're having to take care of I was having to take care of my health, because I kept getting sick. But we were certainly well taken care of at the ashram, and we would venture out, and we went to a hill station, what was it, Malabar Hill Station, which was beautiful. We'd go into Mumbai, every once in a while. We didn't travel too far outside of that area. We were in the state of Maharashtra, but I found the people just so incredibly connected in. The temples were amazing. The devotion was amazing. The way people always would pray and do puja before any event was so touching to me. It was really beautiful. And also, the thing that I really loved about the people is the way they would decorate the trucks and the cars and things with these deities, and with the ribbons and the colored lights and everything. It's like the expression of devotion is on full display, as opposed to, you know, in the West, it tends to be more kind of secular and muted and controlled, and, you know, not quite so out there.
Can you give us some flavor about like puja, fire ceremony? Can you also just describe if it's a twister wheel, not to turn it into a board game, but can you give some flavor on what either daily activities would look like, or some of the practices that you embraced that maybe you weren't doing before, or you were doing them more often?
Yeah, I mean, before I went there, I used to get up at 5, and I did this for 8 or 9 years or something like that. I'd get up at 5 a.m. and I was working. Remember, I was working full time, so I'd get up at 5 and I would chant for about an hour and a half this text, the Guru Gita, sacred text, which is all about the relationship between the seeker and the beloved, and the recognition that you're one and the same. There's only one self. So I would chant that every morning. I'd meditate. I had a hatha yoga practice as well. But so I was well versed in what that looked like. And then when I got to the ashram, it was pretty much the same. Although you could get up at 3 a.m. and go into the temple and do puja, do arati, which is waving the lights and doing arati, and meditate. But I didn't. I used to get up around, same thing, around 5. I'd chant the Guru Gita, meditate. And then we were assigned to do, you know, different kinds of work depending on our background. And so I was working in the logistics department. So I was helping with events, you know, because a lot of people would come to the ashram for retreats, for meditation programs, and all kinds of different retreats. And so I was helping with that because my background as an educator. So I'd do the timing, and I would, you know, I'd plan all the events out and type them up and give the MC the, you know, the written notes and so on. So there was all of that. And so I'd do seva, which is called seva, selfless service, in the morning, have a break for lunch, do the same in the afternoon. And then the evenings were just for, you know, dinner, meditation or study, or take a walk around the gardens, or whatever you wanted to do, really. So that was pretty structured. But the thing that I really loved about it was the opportunity to meet people from all over the world, every background, every faith, every denomination. You know, I met Jews there, I met Christians there, I met people from Australia and New Zealand, and from everywhere. And it was just wonderful, because we were having these really deep conversations about, you know, waking up to the truth of who you are, listening to inner guidance. We were sharing stories of, you know, miraculous stories of healings, and, you know, all the things that people discuss when they're in a spiritual setting. So from that perspective, it's really, really wonderful. It's a great experience.
There are three directions on this. Sorry to interrupt. But so what's next? Who you really are, and the way that you appreciate it, or is it constantly kind of evolving? And then also, while you're there, was there extra flavor? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of playing tour guide on this. So was there extra flavor, extra personalities that you came in contact with or just met while you were there? Other gurus, Lakshmi, anybody like that, whichever way you want to go with this.
What was the first question again?
The first question is what was next. Then the other one was who you are, and then another thread was any other extra figures that you just had a moment. It was that Tuesday in March, and you were like, "Oh my gosh!" And then bam.
So okay, so what was next? Let me just detail that by saying that when I was at the ashram, even though it was amazing, it was great and all of that, what happened was I realized I had to do shadow work. I had a big event where this was just revealed to me. I never heard what, I didn't know what shadow work was. I'd never done any counseling. I didn't have a clue. So that what I used to help out in the library. Yes.
There's one of your books. You've got a bunch of books out that people can check out on Amazon and at your website, juliehoyle.com.
So anyway, so I'll make it as brief as possible. But somebody I was working with just rose up like a tigress one day and started cussing and carrying on like a crazy person. I mean, it was just so bizarre. And it was shocking because, you know, I was thinking, oh my God, here we are in this sacred place and this woman's going crazy and she's cussing, and it was offensive. And I thought, how is it possible that somebody with so much anger could be in such a sacred place? And then I had this recognition that she was reflecting my own anger that had been repressed, so thoroughly repressed, I'd never seen it. So then later that day, and I was thinking, what am I supposed to do with that? I didn't have a clue. And then I went to a library at the ashram later, and a book literally jumped off the shelf and landed at my feet. And that book was titled Chasm of Fire by Mrs. Irina Tweedy. And so I opened the book, and she said she went to India to find a guru who would show her God. But instead, the guru showed her, or forced her, to look at the deepest, darkest places within her and almost killed her. And I knew this was the work that I had to do. So anyway, I then through self-inquiry, my own self-inquiry, I'd ask, how am I supposed to do this? And I'd get the answer. I started doing self-reflection and, you know, learning about this shadow. And I was reading books and doing this really deep work. And that went on for some time. So anyway, my husband and I left the ashram. We were in New York for a while, 6 months or something like that. And then after that, we were invited to head up schools in the Ukraine. And so we took positions in Dnipropetrovsk and then later in Kyiv. So because it's really upsetting what's happening there now. So there we were. And I was still doing the inner work. I was teaching in high school, but, you know, having these profound experiences and still doing my day job, so to speak. And from later on from there, we were then invited to come back to the Bahamas, teach at schools in the Bahamas. And then in a lucid dream, I was invited by one of the great beings to write my book, my first book. She said, when are you writing the book? And I said, what am I supposed to write about? And she looked at me like, are you crazy? So yeah, this first book is An Awakened Life, A Journey of Transformation. And so that just started the whole ball rolling. So I started writing. I was guided. I was told what to, you know, how to put the books together, what the titles were and everything. Again, I had no kind of interest or anything in writing, being a writer. And at the same time too, I was writing articles. I think I've written for about, I don't know, 20 Mind, Body, Spirit magazines in Canada, the US, and in Europe. And that, so that's been ongoing as well. Again, not something I'd ever kind of thought about or dreamt about or anything. So you know, the reason I'm referencing all of that is that what happens is I'm given guidance to do something. I usually don't have a clue how to do it, but I say yes because of where it's coming from, where the request is coming from, or the directive, and somehow it just all comes together.
Okay, we're going to get into the definition of a healer, because there's a gajillion definitions, and I think it's always changing. I'm going to read 2, 3, or 4 definitions, whatever I can find quickly, and then get your reaction. This will buy you some drinking water time too. But then I'll get your reaction. You can say, hey, I love that quote, and then I just add this little tweak to it. A healer is simply someone who helps a person confront opposing forces within him or herself to promote health. A true healer kindles the power already within another. A healer is someone who is able to raise their frequency to connect to the source light energy while keeping themselves clear and fully connected. They use this elevated frequency to help others directly or indirectly. When you're a healing presence, you're an artist. And then one of the most powerful things a healer can do for someone as a healing presence is simply believe. Were any of those spot on? Do you have another way you like to say it?
What I would say is they're all spot on. They're all absolutely 100% accurate, because it's really about meeting someone wherever they're at, holding space for him or her, and then shining light so that they can see the conditions or the beliefs or whatever is in place that has really kind of underpinned the problem that they're dealing with. And you know, as long as you can do that, and as long as that person is able to see, oh, okay, this was the root problem or issue behind, you know, whatever's happening, then that's where the magic can start to work. And obviously that doesn't mean that you discount, you know, orthodox medicine, but orthodox medicine really works much more efficiently if you do the inner work, and if you can kind of at least recognize what that condition is here to gift you with. So I think they've all said you know, the same thing beautifully, but in a different way.
Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Exactly.
Okay, talk to us about compassion, love, gentleness, kindness. Is love the fabric of the universe?
Absolutely. I mean, in my experience, yes, because you know what happens is, and again, coming back to when we get sick, one of the things we can do really easily whenever, let's say you have a headache, or you've got, I had frozen shoulder a few years ago, and it's absolutely agonizing. But whenever anything starts to show up, I always say, okay, what are you here to give me with? What is the lesson? What do I need to love back into light? What is being asked to be seen and held and embraced? Because it's always about that. It's always about loving ourselves enough to take care of what is needed in this moment. And of course, what happens is we can become so busy with life that we put ourselves on the back burner, and we take care of other people and other things, and we can waste time. And you know, if we do that too much, then we get sick, we get out of balance. So everything always comes down to love. It's the same in relationships. You know, the healthiest relationships, the relationships where there's this open communication from a loving place, and there's kindness and compassion and patience too. So again, all of these, even though we use those words, compassion, patience, and all of that, they're just qualities of love. They're just expressions of love, and it's all you know, needed in everything we do, and whether it's work, relationships, visioning for the future. Do we love ourselves enough to include all of those elements?
And for your work, one-on-one, do you do classes? Can you describe a little bit how it's fluctuated over time?
Yeah, so I still do one-on-one sessions, you know, and I give people a choice in terms of whether they want soul purpose reading, shadow work session, expansion, you know, consciousness expansion sessions. And yeah, and I also do those similar things in groups, small groups. I do group work. And I also, you know, I've been doing a lot more on my YouTube channel, where I do what you do, and I interview people who have gone through a mystical experience, an awakening, or they've, you know, they're a healer, or people who've had near-death experiences. So I love doing that too. And essentially everything that I'm doing is really about honoring and holding this space for people so that they can see and learn how to dive into their own intuitive knowing, and to trust it rather than sort of deny it or diminish it or disregard it, and to live from a place of authenticity. So yeah, I do, you know, quite a bit of that.
Okay. Pacific Island, fully stocked with food, electricity, and the rest. Very comfortable. You can only bring 2 historical figures, passed over, alive, whichever. You're going to be with them for a month on the island. Which 2 would they be? The guru types? Would they be unconditional love figures? You can go big. Who are the 2 figures you want to have on the island for 1 month?
Let me see. I would bring it, and this is a tough one, but I would bring Jesus.
Okay.
I would bring Jesus, and I would bring Bhagwan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri, because he was certainly the one that started this whole thing.
With your permission, is it okay to go a little loosey-goosey on this show in that I'll blow some sage, which we do as a sort of staple, but I might put up some angel pictures of actual angels, but maybe some India figures, and then either you'll get something that they're saying to relay to us, or it'll prompt you for sort of the next talking point or chapter, just because you're a walking well or supply of amazing info. And I would love to just go a little more spontaneous. Is that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so sage, anybody at home wants to smell this. It's 2030, you're in Germany, New Zealand. Just let the universe do its job. And for Americans, if you need help, out of your head into your heart. And again, let the universe that's really big do a little more love your way. You can catch sage, but why settle for just linear? Not that sage isn't amazing. Ask for flowers, ocean on top of that. Go for the trifecta. It's like a 3-tiered tiramisu, but trust me, no calories. Okay, a little bit of sage. So from Texas to the Bahamas. And are you already catching the sage?
Yes.
We're shocked. And we did this before the show, and we did it a few days ago. Okay, just to be totally transparent. But are you getting anything else, like a exotic flower, a little bit of ocean sound even, or smell or something?
Yes, I'm getting gardenia.
Yes. Okay, cool. I'm gonna snub this out. And then I'll do a couple of angels, and then I'd love to do India figures. It would be okay to maybe do Lakshmi, Ganesh, Sai Baba, obviously, the tiger on the wall, who would be the one the Divine Mother's on. I'm not going to have any of the lingo correct, but I can at least put up the photos and stuff. Okay, very first angel, she's joy, the emotion joy, ambassador, communicator, and fun. Great high peppy voice if people want to put their hand out, feel what they can feel. What does joy have as either a reminder direct from her, or she's pointing the way on a particular topic, or both?
You want me to say it out loud?
Yeah, if you whatever you
Oh,
want to share. So
oh, okay. She's just reinforcing the importance of listening to your heart and staying true to that.
absolutely beautiful, and that's the whole point of the we just spun the wheel again. Okay, as Charlotte, who's everybody's favorite school teacher from third form, third grade, but not Mrs. Wilson who got you in trouble, Mrs. Johansson. Okay, here's Charlotte, and she's got words of wisdom meant to help you expand. All unconditional love, and they're not here to interfere. You just ask for what you'll allow for. What does Charlotte have for us?
Again, she's saying, trust your deepest wisdom and don't be afraid to share it.
Ah, poetic. And then an angel who's light waves of energy and water. And lately they've been giving their kind of cosmic backgrounds. Maybe we'll touch on that at the end, because all of this is a lot to try to grasp. Luckily, it's not about grasping. Charlotte said she's got an Orion sort of origin story way back when. This one's serious, not trying to be too serious, but light waves of energy and water, Pacific Princess. People who have lived in Hawaii say Mother Hawaii, but just a soft-spoken professor. What does she have for us, for you?
Well, what she's saying for all of us actually is feel into and honor the resonance, because we feel it as waves. It comes through as waves.
Brilliant. 4 archangels, and then we're off to the races with India figures. 4 archangels: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. People can figure out who's who on their own. And what are you getting? What are you feeling? And if you want to get a little bit of twinkles, sparkles in the room, you won't have to vacuum tonight or tomorrow, but just let it be cosmic love, universal love, light, whatever the right word is, extra consciousness, and sprinkle form or twinkle form.
This one is about having a more expansive view rather than, just to keep like focusing on the little things that are irritating. Like look at the sky, connecting with the cosmos, remember who you are, rather than, because I think, we can all do that, right? We can get into the little nitty-gritty stuff that doesn't mean a whole lot.
Again, poetic. Love this, especially the way you're saying it. Very clear. Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, the one from 100+ years ago. And we're going to do the black and white now. Later, we'll come back to him and do colorized. Anybody who wants the photograph to move, Audrey Hepburn on the first page of my website. And this photo, not that we're judging, but they wink, smile, shoulder waggle the most out of all the historical photos. So we know a photo can't move. On the other hand, that's the knowing that precludes possibility that is 80%, 90% of our currency daily. And down in the heart, there's no limits. So why not just ask Sai Baba to wink, smile, catch an Indian incense in the air? What are you going to allow for? Forget all the woo 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 stuff. What are you going to allow for daily? A little more fun, a little more joy, a little more skipping.
Wow.
What'd you get from him?
He said people pray for God for miracles and they forget the miracle is the portal of the heart. He said, just go there.
Oh, and that, sorry, we're not comparing Sai Baba to Winnie the Pooh, but on the other hand, why not? Because they're both total unconditional love. This reminds me of the quote, some people talk to animals, not many listen though. That's the problem. And I would add, that's the opportunity for us all. When we do our requests or our complaints, we don't realize we're just firing out one way. And all you have to do is pay a little bit of attention and you can actually get a full reaction, response, help, whatever you want to call it. And Julie is incredible at about talking about this. Maybe later on we can delve into that more. Ganesh.
Oh, Ganesh, I love Ganesh. Yes.
What'd you get?
He said the only real obstacles are those that you believe in.
Where you put your limits is where you put your limits. Where you put your focus is where you put your focus. These are the three things I've learned. And the other one is, yeah, there's a third one. I don't remember what it was. I forget everything. Okay. Oh, how you spend your energy is how you spend your energy. Those are the only safe statements that I know. And love is love. Okay. Here's Vishnu. And again, what do we have from Vishnu? This is kind of a big deal because a lot of us, if we knew who Vishnu was, would be like, whoa, wait, what? Instead, nah, love is love. Let them do their job.
Yes, got it.
Oh my God, Julie, I love watching your face. Okay, what'd you get?
There are no limits other than what we impose on ourselves. And it's the truth.
You're frying me. Only because this is so much fun. We'll do the big J in a little bit. And Buddha, to make everybody laugh. For 2 years, I was really worried about meeting Buddha. Not that I'm Buddhist or had done any studies. In fact, I'm like the opposite. I'm way behind. But I'm walking through a Target department store and there's a cardboard sign hanging from the ceiling above the book section. So Buddha talked to me this way. And I didn't run out of the store. It was his colors. I'm going to put an artistic version of Buddha up. And anybody who wants to put their hand up and feel what they can feel that way or let their whole body be the feeling device. Welcome to everyday life. Ask anything you want from Buddha at home. I got this right. And for you though, Julie, do you mind as if there was a Buddhist temple in Laos behind you, just 20 meters away, catching incense in the air, even that temple music stuff that's the wind metal stuff that blows in the wind, chimes and things. I don't know what to call it. Or like there's a little playing going on. And then what's Buddha got for us?
Buddha has got the importance of being with you and being true to that.
I think we're getting you like all the points for, you're still writing books, yes? From time to time?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because I mean, these are like incredible. I love this. And then again, with your permission, ooh, Krishna. Okay. Now everyone's got different ways to do all these drawings, paintings, whatever I'm supposed to say, but here's one for Krishna. And one thing that we can all let go of daily, if you don't mind adding an extra request from Krishna, in addition to what you got. Oh my God, this is awesome.
So yeah, the reason I was kind of hesitating was I was going in very deep into Krishna's energy and presence is so profound. But the first thing was love is key, which is what we were talking about earlier. Love is key. And again, trusting that love rather than trusting the opposite.
Oh, and I'll quote Charlotte. She said a long time ago, 7% less thinking a day is the Olympic gold medal. Because we're in the summer of the Olympics in 2024. She said 7% less thinking a day. That's it. And I pulled out a calculator 5 times. I still can't remember. It's somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours, 16 minutes a day. That just means yoga, walking the dogs, putting your feet in the sand, painting. There's 4 million ways to be here, but trust me, there's 40 million ways of logos reasoning. I know this, judging, reacting, resisting, rejecting, that says no way, Jose. I'm looking for Lakshmi, but we'll see who comes up first. Gonna have a little bit of a figure battle here. Oh, Rama. So no drama, just Rama.
Mm. Yes. Yes. He's saying you have to be a warrior when it comes to taking care of the noise, the mental activity. You have to become a warrior. And, going back to what you were saying earlier about, the practices and those things, I remember some years ago, a really great meditation teacher or master in one of my dreams, lucid dreams, said it's important to try and throughout the day to try and watch the mind so that thoughts become really still and they eventually fall away. And if you can have 20 thoughts an hour, for example, you're doing really well. And if
Wait, did you say 20,200 or 20? I'm not sure I heard you.
20.
Yeah.
20. And you do get to when you start watching the mind, you do get to a point where there's just stillness. And there's a thought only arises once in a while. And it's not, you don't chase after it, you're not sort of a slave to it.
Now you can always let that, if you can grab a thought, repeat it and add the word not. Like you're thinking about finances, like you're not worthy of a lot of money coming in, or you're not a money magnet. That's what you think. So just if you're on a run and the first hour of running, or 10 minutes if you're just jogging and stuff, you're like, hey, I'm in a pickle. You're only thinking finances. You can't enjoy nature or the run. Just say, I'm not worth 444 million. Your ego will get behind that. But if you keep saying not enough and you say it in a way you start laughing, the not disappears. The universe doesn't know about the not part. Suddenly you're saying you're worth 444 million. Watch what happens. If you do it the right way, you can play with the mind a little bit, and then it starts working for you. Here's the big J. I'm borrowing from the woman who was, when she was 14, the Heaven is for Real movie, the Burpos, but I think she's from Latvia, Estonia. She probably has 2 PhDs and is 30 years old by now. But here's the classic painting drawing of Jesus. And he's super funny, and he'll tell you Jesus is big business for good reasons, not so good reasons.
Yes. Yes. And he said there is only one.
Beautiful. I figured it out. And I was worried, one of the other figures, when you said yes, I was like, ooh, that might be the message. And I was like, I better scramble to get the next photo, but you did go on. I was ready for just a yes as well. Okay. The tiger on the wall, the one the Divine Mother rides. If I can find a statue of the Divine Mother, we might do her, and then we'll shift gears. So the tiger's action, deity-like, on everyone's team. What else can? Oh, if anyone wants to hear a tiger roar or put their hand out into the room, they can feel tiger fur as it walks by. But you've got to do something to break your structure. Just say, hey, make it nice. But be in your heart and ask and allow, ask and receive. And here's the tiger. And you can definitely feel him walking around into the room. You can hear somehow he does a distant roar while he's nuzzling and purring around you. And did you feel that one?
Yes.
This is a show where we try to do something that's not like a normal show.
Beautiful. I just got the presence,
Okay. So with that, take us where you will, because the story didn't just end there. What was next on the path? I mean, now you're headed to England for a sort of a summer break. What's coming up? What have you been up to very much like lately? And where do you think you're headed personally? Do you know?
That's really hard to answer, because what happens is I have learned to live in ever since I was a kid, actually. It's not even since Shaktipat, but I've always lived intuitively. So, and obviously you have to plan, you have to book your trips and do those things. But when it comes to projects, new directions, writing books, creating courses, do whatever, it always comes out of this intuitive response or request or call to action. And even if I don't know what I'm doing, I say yes to it. So it's essentially about trusting what feels right and going with the flow of that in accordance with the message I've been given. So, there might be more books on the horizon. I don't know. I've written 6 books at the minute, and I've got 3 guided journals. So there's all of that. I've got lots of course content, and I'm still doing the interviews, still meeting with people and working with them individually. Plus, working full time. I still work full time. So there's a lot going on, and but I just always say yes to whatever I'm asked to do when it comes from Source itself, or from one of the great beings that I work with.
You know how family dynamics work. If we're at a garden party and there's just the Smith family, and one person's asked a question, but every one of the family members wants to answer that question for the person who was asked because they know what the story is. And that one person, they might have been reticent. They're a really good painter, but they haven't put their paintings in the gallery yet. They've said, I know, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next week. The usual human ebb and flow thing. Now you're at a garden party with literally all these figures. It's one big family gathering. And here's the question. What's the one little area you've been holding back on that maybe one of those, the other shoe is dropping? And by the way, there's 18 different shoes. They're dropping all the time. Welcome to being human. Welcome to the universe. What's perhaps the answer coming from some of them or from yourself where you're like, well, I have played around with this idea. Is it no more teaching physically schools, going full time, jumping into the pool, becoming the Olympic swimmer you already are? Is there an area where you've been a little introspective? You're still, it might be percolating around. It might be next year, the year after.
Good question. Because I tend to.
Just holding up Sai Baba for a little.
Yes, sure. I tend to, as soon as this intuitive prompt lands, I just take action. I always do. I always have. And there isn't currently anything I'm kind of holding back on or indecisive about, because that's just not the way I am. Obviously, at some point in the near future, I'll be retiring from my day job, and that'll be whenever it might be next year. It might be, who knows? But I'm gonna know when it's time to say enough and I'm done, and because that's the way I work.
Is there?
So I don't know that answers the question.
No, that checked the box. It was good. Is there an online meditation that's available for folks to check out? Is it on the YouTube channel, your website, or is there something you can give as a quick reminder of slowing down one's role daily? Any way you want to handle it, but it could be just a mantra. It could be a quick chant. How simple it is, even as you're doing the dishes, as Thich Nhat Hanh would remind us.
Yes. Well, I've always used the mantra that I was given when I first started to meditate, which is Om Namah Shivaya, which you can find on YouTube. There's many different versions. But, it's really about connecting with a mantra or a prayer that feels like there's resonance. And it might be the Lord's Prayer. It might be Hail Mary. It could be just watching the breath. It might just be silence, going into the silence. But it's really important to connect with something that has resonance for you. And you don't feel like you've got to do it, because then it becomes more work, and nobody needs more work. So, I say the same thing, that doing your daily chores, like peeling potatoes or washing the dishes or whatever, just doing that with mindfulness and self-reflection, and or repeating the Lord's Prayer or repeating a mantra is plenty. It
So
doesn't have to be a three-hour seated practice, in other words.
what you just said was tremendous. And there's stuff that people actually like to do, gardening, or some people actually like to mow the lawn. Maybe they put the music in and it's a way to relax, not necessarily in Texas. But the point of this is there's a million entrance points into here, the opening openness, the gateless gate, the doorless door, a lot of different cultures, philosophies. What am I missing? Spirituality practices talk about this. With your permission, one last interactive sort of exercise. I'll do my light between my fingers, Celestine prophecy style, but in India and parts of India, they do it this way. And then a guest the other day was like, hey, before Celestine prophecy existed, we were doing this in the 70s. So who knows where it came from, but it's seeing some light. The point of this was for what you just talked about, what I tried to touch on was that consciousness, love is in everything. And there's just a million ways to try to get you to breathe a little, relax a little, and drop down to here. And can you, before I pull up a dark background, blue sky is number one. Can you rephrase all this in the elegant way that you say everything, to just remind us how consciousness, love, awareness, whatever we call it, is here? Can you do it the Julie Hoyle patented method way? Exactly.
Well, one of the things I always remember, again, and I'm quoting from Bhagavan Nityananda, and he says, the heart is the hub of all sacred places. Go there and roam. And so really any practice, whether it's just sitting in the garden, looking at the sky, for example, or listening to the birds, any practice that allows the mind to take rest in the heart is the most profound thing you can do for yourself at any time, in any moment. And the thing that I've always said, one of the practices that, I used to do a lot of mantra repetition, which is called japa. Even when I was teaching, I would just repeat the mantra, repeat the mantra, repeat the mantra. I'd have the students come into the room, find their place, and then I would stand and not say a word. I'd just be repeating the mantra and waiting for silence. And then when I could feel everybody was in silence, I'd say, good morning, everybody. And we would meet in the space of silence. So you can even have conversations from that space of silence, as long as you're not sitting in the mind, analyzing, figuring out, going at, a million miles a minute. But it's such a simple practice to just drop into the heart, to speak from that place, to share from that place, and to live from that place. It's not that difficult. It's not that, it's not a longer distance, right? From head to heart. But what happens is, for the most part, many people live in the head.
Okay, we're doing a left-hand turn. We're coming to the energy thing in just a second, but 4 or 5 quotes for you from like Chogyam Trungpa. I can now say it correctly. I've been saying it wrong for like 10 years. I would say Rinpoche, but it's Rinpoche, I believe. I mispronounce everything, so throw me under the bus. But here's one quote, and then there'll be a few more quotes to get your reaction on, or just to add to, because that's where you just took us. Taking one breath is like taking one step. Both bring peace and harmony. Chogyam Trungpa in 2014. The way to experience nowness is to realize that this very moment, this very point in life is always the occasion. Chogyam Trungpa again in 2014. It was a big year. Angels, love more and allow more. You can be happy now in this very moment without a single reason. And another angel named Dale, this is not about knowing, but continued learning. Few humans fully comprehend the difference here. And that's not meant to sound harsh. It's just that what you talked about earlier, the knowing that precludes possibility versus staying open. Chogyam Trungpa is winning the day here. A breath opens awareness and connection to all. Forgot I had that quote. And finally, one more. From Jesus, compassion is here for all. A person need only be open to receive. A new consciousness emerges. Details are not so important. Love is love. What does this spark within you? What do you get? You probably were getting something already. Julie, what do you got for us?
So while you were speaking, I was taken back to a lucid dream I had about 10 years ago, with a great being whose name is Papaji, and he's a realized enlightened master. And he just walked up to me. I was sitting at a table. He walked up to me and sat down, and he said, what you were saying to your people, and I knew he was referring to when I was teaching a group on being present. And he said, what you said to your people is true. There is no better moment than now. And I love that there is no better moment than now. This is it. Mm. This is it.
Brilliant. Okay. One of these, two of these, but a dad joke. And here's the dad joke for everybody. Now, Julie's already heard this, but it doesn't mean she can't laugh again. If you're laughing, generally there aren't many fake laughers running around, just like none of us run around and say, I'm going to waste my energy the rest of today, but not just today. A couple weeks in a row, and maybe if I'm lucky, 2 months in a row. But that's exactly what we do with a lot of wasted time and energy and whatever that's called from the neck and above. So love and above instead. Here's a volunteer foam with some black paper around it. I'll just show my light. I'm going to do this awkwardly a little bit. But the dad joke is Santa's reindeer, Blitzen and Dancer, just those two. Why do they drink so much coffee, Blitzen and Dancer? Because they're Santa's Starbucks. And then just see a little bit of light, white, gold, green. If it's clear, it's clear. Anything gray, just breathe more and you get a color. It's like a blanket covering. And Julie, what are you seeing between my fingers?
I'm seeing pink. Pink light.
Let's do, instead of blame Canada, let's do blame angels. Let's blame joy. And before we go to sort of a wrapping up phase of the show, what's joy have as another, either pointing out one of your other experiences when you actually ran into a figure in human form, that stranger who said something kind to you on the London street? Do you have one of those? She'll remind you of something you can share another one of those times, because you're good at, again, sharing. You got it?
Yes. So this was years ago. My husband and I were in Key West, which we loved. And we went to this little restaurant bar across the street from where we were staying. And there was a guy sitting at the bar, and everybody was avoiding him because he looked disheveled and, not very clean and so on and so forth. But I just felt like there was something about him that was really drawing me. So I went and sat next to him, and my husband, we joined him, and we got into this conversation. And it was clearly he was an alcoholic, but we had the most profound conversation with this man. We only chatted for like 10 or 15 minutes, but he was the wisdom and the treasures that he was sharing was just so amazing. And he walked away, and Tony and I looked at one another and we were like, wow. And then I turned around and he'd gone, and we couldn't figure out where he'd gone. And I remember saying he was an angel, that this man was a great being, an angel, or whatever you want to call it, just amazing. I can't really specifically recall what he said to us that morning, but I felt my state change. And the thing is that what I recognize is these great beings walk among us often in garb, the garb or the appearance that may not be so appealing. And but there's a resonance, there's a profundity about their presence that is unmistakable.
What an adventure. I'm borrowing from an angel who, when I asked about homelessness one time, they said, what an adventure. And I was like, whoa, I had to sit with that for a long time. And I'm like, whoa, what an adventure. Now, if I can, I'm going to put up Joy and Charlotte. If you want to get the name of who that was, you can. You don't have to share that out loud. But if there's something fun and pithy or whatever I'm supposed to say, cool for us to hear and that you want to share, great. And if you want to close your eyes, you can see him again, but see him in a different form or fashion. And anybody at home, you can just put your hands up to the photo. Put one hand to Joy, one hand to Charlotte. Feel two different vibes, but the same piano scale up into the heavens or cosmos of love. And Julie, what do you get? Or what can you share? Because maybe that was meant to be private. It's up to you.
What can I share with respect to what I just...
This is your show, so I want you to take us wherever you want to take us.
But what I'm asking is, with the anecdote I just shared about this guy that appeared. Is that what you're asking me? I wasn't.
Yeah. Did you get a little lowdown on who it was? And if I need to put it back up, you can they can give you the backstory of like I was running into Angel.
I got it. I
Yeah,
got
okay.
it.
Good.
I got it. It was a form of Sai Baba of Shirdi. Now I get it.
Oh, okay, good. And so oh, and I never did the colorized version of him. Sorry to sound like that's a must. But can you keep talking while I'm finding the photo?
Yeah, so I hadn't made that connection because when I met this being, that was before I got Shaktipat. I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, so I hadn't made that connection, which is really something, actually.
Very cool. So we did a good deed, and I'm going to show an angel named Heather, and her name, I'm going to lose my English here. Heather is rearranged into the word heart with extra letters left over. She makes hearts in her photos. I don't have time to bring them all up, but go to the website. You can look. There's Heather. She makes hearts. She's compassion. She's very earth-based. People from South Africa love her because she'll remind them of the soil, but she's got a connection to the Amazon. She's fun, but I've seen her in human form in Stockholm before I ever knew angels existed. I wouldn't even have been able to say I've watched a Super Soul Sunday episode, nothing. So I've seen her in Stockholm, Maui, New York, Vegas, and Austin in full-on human form, but totally different every time. Portuguese ballerina taking time off from life, African-American, most beautiful woman in the world, blah, 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 all sorts of stuff. Back to Sai Baba. Here's colorized version. Anybody at home, if you don't ask, you don't get. You have to find your own way to ask, and then get in touch with Julie to have even more unlocking and have even more fun for the skills that you already own. And this is such a crystal clear photo. I don't get it, but you know, this is from 100+ years ago for him.
So beautiful.
What's a final reminder from us all via from above and from within and from around us? They live within us and around us.
Again, trust the wisdom of your own heart.
Yes. And with that, will you take us somewhere? You know, you're a show host as well. People should check out your show. And by the way, here's the public service announcement. What have you loved about Julie? Put in the comments. You know, like people are so shy on this channel. We've had 480,000 channel views in like just over 2 years or a year and a half. And the point is, people are so shy. Just write, I really like Julie. Just write, I like love. Love rocks. Anything. But make sure you share this with someone because it's the only way it gets out. And there's a lot of fun stuff in the show. But Julie also has really fun guests, and there's a lot of cool storytelling going on. What's the final takeaway? Because you have the expertise of knowing how to close out a show.
Again, good question.
It's not that there's a spotlight on you, but I'm going to help. I'm going to help. I'm going to put 3 figures up that are like, hey, you already got this. You knew it.
Yeah, listen, you know what I keep always come down to, which is really underpins my work, and I'm sure it underpins your work as well, is recognizing who you are beyond your personal story, and trusting, again, coming back to trusting your own innate knowing, trusting your intuition, trusting the wisdom of your heart, living from that place. You know, don't diminish or repress any of that, because it's that that feeds you, it's that that gives you strength and courage, and it's that that shines bright through you and through your words and through your presence, and it's that that helps to uplift humanity. And you know, it can sound kind of woo-woo, but it's the truth.
And well, Julie, I've got to say thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your openness. And I think those are qualities that you're sharing with people continually now on your journey. You've been a fantastic guest on Angels, Positivity, and Love, coming to us from the Bahamas, soon to be England for a little bit in the summer, back to the Bahamas. People can check out juliehoyle.com for your
.org.
.org. Sorry about that. And that'll be in the details properly done. But also your Amazon author profile has all the different books and stuff like that. Is there a final something? Can you give us some mantra that you normally don't give out? And I'm going to put up 2 more figures just in case. It could be 2 mantras. Would you get something unusual you might not have given before? We could put it on a t-shirt.
You know, one of the things that I would say is really important is to look in the mirror and just to say, I love you, and to welcome yourself. Well, you know, even if you feel like, I'm sorry, can I say this, shitty?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or you're angry with yourself or whatever, at least say, okay, I can still love myself. I can still honor myself, you know, no matter what's coming up. Because the truth of you is prior to the story.
Mm,
You are that which precedes the story. Whether the story is amazing, brilliant, or
mm.
you know, dark or unhappy or whatever, there's still something that sees the story and can speak about the story, you know, and all of that. The truth of who you are is vast. It's limitless
Mm.
because you are the supreme self. You are source itself, out of which the story arises and expresses itself. And this is what all the great beings are here to teach us,
Mm.
that you're much, 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 much more than your story.
There's the old Tootsie Pop commercials from the 70s or 80s in America. I'm not sure how many people will remember, but the question was, how many licks does it take to get through the Tootsie Pop to get to the center where there was like a different chewable treat inside the lollipop? And that's in a way what you said about the mirror. If you went and is it 1,000 times you have to say, I love you? Because you're going to go through an entire transformative journey. It could save you a year, 6 years at the ashram and all the externals. But good luck with this because by the 400th time, you're either falling asleep, you're bored, the brain says you can't do this, you're in tears because you've started to reach yourself and penetrate yourself. But by the 700th time, hopefully just 70th time, you're giggling, you're laughing, you're shining, and you're reconnecting with all that is and your higher self and so on. Brilliant advice. Julie, thank you very much for being on the show. You are wonderful. Big fan of yours.
Thank you so much, Michael. This has been really great fun. I've loved every minute.